For Telesur, I'm Sarah Begum in Caracas. A historic day for the Americas and the world as the President of Cuba, Raul Castro, and US President Obama revealed the reversal of a long-running US policy of isolating Cuba.
In a live televised address, President Barack Obama announced the dawn of a new era, a normalization of bilateral relations with Cuba following more than 50 years of economic blockade. A policy that, according to Obama's own admission, has failed to bring down the Cuban revolution.
We will end an outdated approach that for decades has failed to advance our interests, and instead we will begin to normalize relations between our two countries.
Although the White House will relax travel, commercial and diplomatic restrictions, the US Congress has yet to approve the end of the blockade against Cuba. In Havana, President Raul Castro insisted the struggle had not yet ended.
This does not mean that the main issue has been resolved. The economic, commercial and financial blockade, which causes huge human and economic losses to our country, has come to an end.
The declarations from both heads of state came after the release of the Cuban 5 anti-terrorists held in US prisons since 1998. Cuba reciprocated the move with the release of US spy Alan Gross.
To me, Cubanos, or at least most of them, are incredibly kind, generous, and talented. It pains me to see them treated so unjustly as a consequence of two governments' mutually belligerent policies. 5.5 decades of history show us that such belligerence inhibits better judgment. Two wrongs never make a right.
As the news came in, Cubans took to the streets to welcome back their heroes and the new relations with their northern neighbors, a cause for celebration they had been waiting on for decades.
Latin American presidents have also hailed the day as historic, with Argentina President Cristina Fernandez saying it was an intelligent decision. Venezuela President Nicolas Maduro said it was a courageous move that would advance inter-American relations.
We are living an historic day. I can't stop saying how happy we are regarding the liberation of the 3 Cuban heroes that are already back in Cuba, according to President Raul Castro's announcement. They're already back in their homeland, free and with dignity. It is a moral victory, like Pepe's ethics, the ethics of resistance, of loyalty to values. It's a victory for Fidel, a historic victory for the Cuban people, today the 17th of December.
And for the latest on what Obama said were the most significant change in US policy to Cuba, we turn to our correspondent in the United States, Alexandra Hall.
A historic day here in Washington as the United States and Cuba announced that they will reestablish diplomatic relations. According to the White House, there are plans for a U.S. embassy to open in Havana and also for a Cuban embassy to open here in the United States. It also means an easing of financial and travel restrictions for U.S. citizens to Cuba, including family members and government and humanitarian workers. It also means that the U.S. will review Cuba's designation on its state sponsor of terrorism list. President Obama on Wednesday announced that isolating Cuba hasn't helped anyone. And Cuban President Raul Castro specifically thanked Canada and also Pope Francis for facilitating this landmark decision. Here in Washington, many people are saying that it's about time that, that these restrictions be lifted. In Washington, I'm Alexandra Hall for Telesur.
And today really is a big day in Latin America. In Colombia, the FARC have announced a unilateral ceasefire after 50 years of conflict. The cessation of hostilities will come into effect on December 20th. However, it needs to be verified by international bodies. It remains unclear as to whether the Colombian government will join in the ceasefire.
We hope we can agree on the conditions for a bilateral ceasefire and thereby end the impact of the armed conflict that it has on a daily basis on the people, causing them pain and suffering.
And with the announcement, the final group of victims are in Havana to take part in the peace negotiations, hoping to see further agreements. For more, we turn to Charles Parkinson in Colombia.
Today, the Revolutionary Armed Forces of Colombia declared a unilateral ceasefire for the festive period, set to take hold on Saturday the 20th of December. Now, to some extent, this is not an unexpected move from the guerrillas. It's the third year in a row that they've declared such a ceasefire, with only minor infractions recorded during the previous 2 years. The big question is, will the government this year be brave enough to declare their own unilateral ceasefire? They've never previously done so, and of course they've consistently rejected the concept of a bilateral ceasefire. However, two parallel unilateral ceasefires is an entirely different prospect, given that either side could call off their own ceasefire without affecting the other. Now, the problem would be such a move would draw heavy criticism from reactionary sections of Colombian politics and society. However, it could be seen as a sort of act of peace that the government has been demanding of the FARC. Charles Parkinson in Bogota, Colombia.
In Mexico, as most Mexicans begin to enjoy their winter holidays, the movement for the disappeared Ayotzinapa students continues. On Sunday, police clashed with families and classmates of the still missing 42 students, many calling the violence a provocation. Of our correspondent, Clayton Conn has more.
Typically during this time of year, Mexicans enjoy their holiday vacations and time off. However, many say this year it will be different, adorning their Christmas trees with the faces of the 42 disappeared Ayotzinapa students.
We don't want to go on vacation because we know that the Ayotzinapa families are not complete, nor is our society.
Tensions remain high nearly 3 months since police in Iguala Guerrero disappeared the students. On Sunday, federal police clashed with the students and family of the missing.
They have not been able to split this movement. They have reached such desperation that they have taken measures like what occurred on Sunday.
Human rights defenders also view the violence as a provocation by the authorities.
It is clear that this provocation is part of the federal police's strategy to criminalize and toughen a repressive policy in order to end this conflict through violence.
Some senators view the events as a form to prolong the crisis and indignation that has swept the country for months.
This will only generate more social tension. A clearing up and full truth of the facts should be the priority.
With many arguing that the holidays were going to reduce the social tension over the Ayotzinapa case, it appears that the public eye and light will remain until there's a sense of justice served. Clayton Conn, Telesur, Mexico City.
Moving to Spain, thousands have protested against state persecution of anarchists. So-called Operation Pandora has been arresting people connected to anarchist groups, accusing them of terrorism. Police have raided squats in Barcelona as well as reading rooms and private houses, bringing back memories of the Spanish Civil War. Early elections could be called in Greece next year after the country's 300 MPs failed to elect a president in their first round of voting. Polls suggest the leftist Syriza party would win in the event of snap elections. Elections are automatically triggered if 3 rounds of votes fail to elect the government's candidate for president. And continuing our Good News Day, in Palestine, Hamas will be removed from the European Union's terrorist groups. For this report, Noor Harazim.
Today, the Hamas movement in Gaza received a great news after a European court ruled on Wednesday that Hamas must be removed from the EU's terrorism blacklist. The decision to remove Hamas was based on technical grounds and does not imply any substantive assessment of the question of the classification of Hamas as a terrorist group. The Luxembourg-based court said that freeze on Hamas's funds will also temporarily remain in place for 3 months, pending any appeal by the EU. Meanwhile, in the West Bank, tension is rising again between Palestinians and Israeli soldiers after a Palestinian man was killed on Tuesday by Israeli gunmen fire. Another 30 Palestinians were injured, including children, when they clashed with Israeli soldiers during the man's funeral. However, here in Gaza, the situation continues to worsen, with the Egyptian full closure on Rafah border, which is Gaza's 1.8 million people gate to the world. Nur Harazin, Telesu TV, Gaza.
And to finish up, hundreds of couples performed a tango on St. Peter's Square in a birthday treat for the Pope Francis, who hails from Argentina, the birthplace of the celebrated sultry dance. The dancers were among 13,000 people at St. Peter's for the Pope's weekly public audience. The celebration was held before the leader of the world's Catholics issued a solemn condemnation of recent atrocities in Pakistan, Yemen and Australia. More on these and other stories on our website, telesortv.net/English. For Telesor English, I'm Sarah Begum. Good night.